There are so many things I didn't know, how to work with KE and distributors, how to sell into retail accounts. And so I started organizing founder meetups through our investors where every month we have a founder share around a topic area within the business. I was like, this is really impactful because I've constantly felt like I was reinventing the wheel as a founder when thousands of other people have done it before me in every step of the business. And so I built an affordable community where founders could join. There's a small membership fee, and then we would meet regularly, share resources. Now, Foodbevy reaches over 5,000 CPG founders and people within CPG brands. And so it's been really incredible.
Hi, everyone, and welcome back to the Perfect Bite podcast. I'm your host, Sarah Perkins. There are a lot of food media sources out there, your girl included, and it rings really untrue if someone is just writing reviews or being part of things because they like food. I always love when I come across folks who have really been there on some level and can share their wealth of wisdom and stories with those coming next in the space. Today's guest does just that from his online community connecting CPG founders and his platform filled with articles, webinars, and yes, his own podcast, all sharing how other founders can scale their own businesses. After all, he's done it himself a few times. Please welcome the founder of Foodbevy, Jordan Buckner. Jordan, hi.
Hey, thanks so much for having me on. I'm super excited to talk and hang out with you today.
No, same. And I'm just so glad that you reached out originally because I know the internet can be a really scary place, but I love how we can also find our people. I mean, you're in Wisconsin, I'm in Ohio, and it's like we could just be hanging out next to each other right now.
And we've both talked about how there's not necessarily a huge CPG community where we
I
are, and
know.
a way to get to meet and talk and share with other people who care about the same things we do.
I know. And I feel like one day it will just both give us and other people the kick in the pants to finally be like, okay, I'll start doing things in person
Exactly, exactly.
that aren't just in our big cities, like me going back to Chicago so much.
Yes.
Well, I always love to take things back to the beginning here. Can you tell us, when did you first fall in love with food? What was eating and cooking really like in your household growing up?
So I always tell people that I was probably born to be an entrepreneur. I came from a family where both my mom and dad had their own businesses. My grandmother had a grocery store. And
Gosh,
so that was just like the way of
yeah.
my family. And even like when my mom had a full-time job, she always had something else that she was doing on the side, whether it was like selling Tupperware, or she eventually went back to school to get her culinary degree and then ran a catering business. And so that's how I really grew up around cooking. Like she would come home from culinary school and we remake the things that she learned for dinner that night. And so as a young kid, I was cooking all these interesting things with her, and it was really exciting. And then my dad actually, at a certain point, owned a couple of grocery stores, like, two grocery stores in Chicago. And so, again, I always grew up around food and the food industry.
My gosh, that's so great. What was she making at home? Like, again, I grew up and my poor mother, I would say, like, we grew up in an efficiency household where it was about what can we pull together that everyone's actually going to eat too. But what was she bringing home from culinary school that was a little bit different than, say, a Midwestern dinner?
Yeah, I remember making like a crab stuffed chicken breast where we like cut the chicken breast in half and then stuffed it with crab meat and baked that. Or when we made there's like a parchment paper lemon salmon dish and just like all the flavors. And it's like a French technique and style. And so those kind of things. But she also loved to bake. That was actually her true passion. So we were making cookies, pies, cobblers, and it's a wonder that I'm not a million pounds because I ate so many baked goods as a kid, but absolutely loved it.
Oh my God, I am the biggest sweet tooth. That is my absolute vice, is butter and sugar, for
Yeah,
sure. So I get it. I get it. I have to stop myself a lot of times. But I mean, we gotta have some pleasure in life. So,
exactly.
what were your dad's grocery stores like too? Are these those beautiful family grocery stores you think of where he knows the vendors, and were you seeing that behind the scenes process too, almost of how people worked together?
It's interesting because My dad's a little bit older, and when I was a kid, he essentially was, like, at the tail end of stepping away from those grocery stores, and it was kind of funny because whenever he would go into the stores, he would get pulled in a million directions, and so he would actually wait in the parking lot and send me inside to, like, pick up a stack of checks for him to sign and not go in because otherwise we would spend an hour there, and
Yes.
so I had this weird relationship with it at a distance where, like, I would go in as a 8, 9-year-old kid and it'll buzz me into the employee offices, and I just be like, "Hi, I'm here to pick up, this for my dinner." Like, of course, like, they knew I was coming and they knew who I was, and so they're just handing it to me, but I never spend any time actually, like, in the back rooms of the grocery store, but it created this allure because it was very much, like, in and out for me, where I knew nothing about what was actually going on, except I kinda saw it just from a passing distance. Like, we didn't even shop there as our grocery store, which is really interesting, but it almost created this known for me.
Yeah, you're like, Why not? What is going on here?" But
Yes.
it sounds like it also got you really excited about, "Oh, okay, mom, dad, your grandmother." This is a little bit of how my family is too. Both of my grandparents, both sides, technically entrepreneurs. And then my dad has run his own stuff as well, in addition to being an attorney way back when. So when you see it, you're kind of like, oh, I think it's that natural feeling of like, I could do that too. And so I don't want to say your career necessarily went into food right away. However, tell us what your first business was again. Was it a coffee shop?
Oh, wow, that's good info. So in high
Me and my LinkedIn creepings.
I'll take it actually way back. So in 5th grade, I started bringing candy to school to
That's
sell.
right. That's right.
And I actually had you remember those, like, Airhead candies that were long,
Oh, yeah.
and being my 5th grade self, I had these cargo pants that had a long pocket, like, horizontal pocket, and I would actually keep those on the side and sell them for a quarter or something. And then with my mom's catering business, she actually would make a lot of cookies and things, and when she would have extra cookies that didn't sell over the weekend, I'd actually take those to school on Monday and sell those in high school. And, like, that was my allowance money. My
You
parents
were
didn't
earning it.
have to go and, like, earn and sell this product to sell it to my classmates, and I became known as, like, the cookie guy at school, and I would sell cookies. At one point, I was even selling, like, dinner rolls because people were just, like, hungry in high school, and they switched the vending machines to the healthy things, so that's what started it. And then, yes, in my senior year, I took an economics class and had an opportunity to open a coffee shop within the school. And it was really interesting because there was this utility space next to the cafeteria that wasn't being used, and we actually applied for funding through, like, the Parents Association, got a $4,000 grant that allowed us to buy espresso and coffee machines. It was myself and 4 or 5 other students in this class, and, I mean, it's kinda wild of my entrepreneurial journey, right? What high schooler wants to actually get up so early, but I would get up an hour earlier so I could go to school in the morning before everyone else arrived, prep all the
Please.
coffee stations, and we were making lattes and mochas and coffee and all these things for students and for faculty to come in and just like the teachers and selling them coffee, and we didn't get paid. The money that we made just went back to, like, paying off that loan that we got and then just going back to the school, but I did it for fun for, like, 6 months as my senior year.
So great. I liked to work too when I was younger. I wasn't starting businesses like that outside of when I was 10 years old and I asked my next door neighbors if I could walk their schnauzer for $10 a week.
Yeah,
So that was like my own, it was more my clientele days then.
I love
But
it.
like, remind me what school you went to because this is so cool. They had such an opportunity. Was this in Chicago?
It was in Chicago, it was Whitney Young High
Oh,
School.
nice, nice. Oh my god. It almost feels Montessori from some standpoints where, again, I don't have kids. I cannot speak to this, but I would always love the idea of, like, if schools could open up people to more real life experiences like this,
It
you
has,
know?
and I mean, I'm fortunate to have opportunities like this to bring ideas to life through school, which has been very
Through college too, right?
instrumental. Yeah, through college as well, and just, like, all the things that we're able to do, so it's been amazing.
Yes. So, speaking of college, go Illini. You went to U of I and you studied architecture, which my grandpa also did there. I'd love to hear what drew you to that industry first in terms of something that you thought like, "Oh, this is like the grown-up job. This is what I'm doing as my career." And during that time, I want to hear when you were starting to get the inklings of this is nice, this is good, but I want to do my own thing and it's in something totally different.
I knew I was going to be an architect ever since the third grade.
Oh,
We did a project in school learning about Frank Lloyd Wright architecture. And I remember we took a field trip to Oak Park suburb, which is right outside of Chicago. And we were going to visit Frank Lloyd Wright design houses and then going to McDonald's for lunch, right? Because that's what kids did.
in a
And I think
beautiful
I asked my
day.
teacher, right? I wonder what a Frank Lloyd Wright design McDonald's would look like. And she thought, huh, that's actually a really interesting idea for a project around this experience. And so she actually took that and made it into a class-wide project. Everyone designed their own Frank Lloyd Wright McDonald's. We got to go to McDonald's headquarters, which was in the Chicago area, and get to try
Yes.
the first McFlurry before they were released and got like blueprints of the first McDonald's. It was a whole thing. It was like one of the most formative experiences. And so fast forward my whole life, I knew I was going to be an architect because I had this interest, study architecture in college. Actually went to University of Michigan for undergrad and then U of I for grad school. Have two architecture degrees and actually absolutely love the education. It's actually
Yeah.
very creative, but within a set of guardrails, which is really interesting. And so, how do you design within constraints? And so, actually, I think a lot of my entrepreneurial training came through architecture. Except what I realized is that the design elements is what I really love, the creativity side, but I was not interested in the career path of being an architect. And so during my grad school days, I actually did a dual degree with my MBA, kind of went into the business world. And then at that point, I was like, I actually don't really know what I want to be. I know I
Right.
don't want architecture. I was kind of interested in development and got an opportunity to get a job working within a new product consulting agency for CPG products, while at the same time had an idea where I started my first official legal business, ChopBox, which is a meal kit company.
See,
So
yes.
all these things kind of came together. What is really just me trying to figure out where can I express this entrepreneurial desire. I had this relationship with food, and so that's what kind of launched me into my first official business, ChopBox.
What made it so different? Because this was like 2015. We got to talk about TeaSquares too, that you're working on at the same time. Why did you decide working on the meal kit was the right idea right then? This is also the boom of meal kits happening, right? Blue Apron and Tabbouleh
Planet,
was kind of started
Hello,
around this time
yeah,
too. Yes. And again, you were right in Chicago, which is perfect because it's all where it's happening too, and where they've all
totally.
sold or really scaled since then.
Yes, and when I was starting ChopBox, it was right when I think like Plated and Blue Apron were like a year or two old, so still at the very beginning of there, and thought, hey, this could be a really cool opportunity. It actually happened because I was doing an internship in Michigan and I was staying at a friend's house, but because I was staying at his apartment, like I didn't want to buy all the food and go grocery shopping, but I still like to cook for myself. And I thought, well, I wish I just had everything already in my fridge ready to cook. And so I wouldn't have to go grocery shopping and buy all these extra ingredients because it wasn't my place, but to cook a homemade meal. And so that's what kicked off the idea. I was actually working full time, 9 to 5 at my job right out of college while I was working on this nights and weekends. And then because my mom had her catering company, we had a commercial kitchen I could work out of. So I was doing everything from like creating the website, going to buy all the ingredients. We actually prep them. So we would chop up the onions for you that would go in the
Box.
meals.
I
Exactly.
love that.
Everything's chopped up in the box. I was doing sample tables at apartment buildings in Chicago. And then every Tuesday, we're actually doing the delivery. So driving around the entire city, dropping off our reusable bags. And it was a whole thing. Realized quickly that it was a lot to do. It was not very sustainable as a business model. And there were a lot of kind of issues just with that business. And at the same time, my own eating went down. Even though I was making meals for everyone else, I wasn't eating very well.
Right.
And that's actually while I was running Chatbox is when I started TeaSquares. Really, the idea was how can I make a snack to help keep me energized throughout the day? And so I started making these little snack bars, infusing them with green tea for an extra energy boost, and eating those while I was kind of doing all these deliveries and working at my full time job. And then that quickly turned into a product. I was like, okay, honestly, the meal kit business was overwhelming. I was doing all the work, couldn't afford to hire anyone, didn't have
It's a
any investment.
lot.
And
I
so
mean,
that
it's a lot of money, a
it
lot of logistics, a lot of overhead.
Exactly.
Yeah. What were some of the recipes that were in the boxes back then? And also, what were the ingredients you were finding for T-squares and figuring out too, like how to actually manufacture your own CPG product? So you were
Yep.
almost doing essentially two CPG businesses at the same time in some ways.
I've always have been doing way too much. So for our recipes, one of my favorites was a lemon chicken fettuccine. And then we were selling, we also
Classic.
did like a three bean chili, a roasted salmon with Brussels sprouts. So all kind of healthier, better for you meals.
Yes.
And then with T squares, I honestly just went to Whole Foods to look around the shelf and thought of what I liked. I love light, crunchy snacks. And so we actually used puffed millet, almonds, pepitas to create this lightweight snack, and then use green tea powder to mix that in with some brown rice syrup and honey and agave into kind of this slurry, and it'll form into this light, almost like a rice cake texture, but with a lot more flavor.
Oh, that's
And
amazing.
nice crunchy squares.
How are you getting those out there?
Yeah, so I was running actually both. We were doing ChopBox and it saved me. It was like myself, and then I started working with someone I knew from Illinois as well, who was kind of working with me part time. And then we decided to just shut down ChopBox and work on TeaSquares. It was like very early days, right? I like download my email list. We email friends and family to get initial orders and support. And at this point, we're like just putting things together. We found bags from Amazon that we packaged them in. We were manufacturing. We were actually dehydrating them to take the moisture out to get that light and crispy texture, which is like a
Yeah.
your thing. And then 4 months into just that journey of trying to figure this out, we actually had an opportunity to pitch to Whole Foods because they were opening up new stores in Chicago and were looking for local vendors. And we kind of just cobbled something together, pitched the product, and we were accepted. Yes.
Amazing. So you started in Whole Foods in Chicago. How far did it go from there?
So ran T-Squares from end of 2015 to essentially like 2020, a little bit through the pandemic. So 5, 6 years. And we were
Mhm.
selling in Whole Food stores. We were selling regionally within the Midwest of Whole Foods. We were selling in Mariano stores, some of the Jewel Osco stores, Midwest Chicago area, Amazon, and then honestly, a big part of what we were doing was trying to find product market fit. And
Yes.
I'll tell you that it was a long journey to figure out what exactly it was that we were selling, how to communicate that to customers. Because one of the big things I realized is that we call them tea infused energy snacks. And whenever we would do in store demos, everyone was really confused about what they were. They would stop, they would talk to us, a little intrigued, and most would taste it. And the number one comment I remember was them saying, like, this tastes a lot better than it looks.
Oh,
And I'm like, on one hand,
like
I'm
baked
glad it
goods.
tastes really well because it's food. But on the other hand, it wasn't very appetizing. So just to give context, there were bite-sized, like 1 inch squares.
Yeah.
We sold them in a multi-pack where there would be like 16 squares in a pouch. And then we call them tea infused energy snacks. We were using matcha and black tea within there. And it was really confusing for customers. And I always say I was working to kind of build so many points of differentiation that it would be hard to copy and keep a moat around our
Right.
competition. But what it actually ended up doing was creating a moat, keeping our customers out.
Didn't know what was going on.
They didn't know what it was. They didn't know why they should buy it. They didn't know where to buy it because we were like in a weird place in the store. And it made it very, very difficult to sell.
Oh my goodness. That is such a good lesson for everyone. And I feel like that was also just kind of reflective of whether it was CPG or I'd hear that in tech all the time. Okay, what's your moat? How are you going to keep other people out all the time? And 10 years later, I gotta say this. Most things can be replicable. And it's just a matter of you wanting it more and doing it better or finding a different audience. Cause like when you were first talking about it, there's these, I cannot remember the name. There's a little owl on them, but they're caffeinated chocolate squares that
Oh,
I've seen at,
totally.
yeah, like bookstores. So yeah, there's amazing caffeinated snacks out there. But for me, it would be like, oh, yours sounds like the great healthy version. I feel really good about eating this versus a caffeinated chocolate square sounds great for like college students on a late night study run or something like that, right? And so I think there's just always space, and markets are almost just so much bigger than we all realize, and the opportunities that you can do exactly that. And I've done that too, where you're like, well, I just got to be so much more different than people are like, I just don't understand what's going on.
I think is actually a detriment to a lot of founders because I was told by lots of investors, people in the industry, even myself, that I needed
What's
to
the
find
moat?
these
Yeah,
like blue ocean, like the white space, all these terms of being so different. But what I came to realize is that the best products take an existing behavior, something that people already buy, they already want, and you add one, one point of differentiate, one thing that's special that they're not currently getting from the options out there, and they can see that, and then that's the reason to buy your product. And so, for instance, with TeaSquares, if I was to redo it, I would have had a protein bar, right? Because protein
of course.
bars were the main things that people were going in that set. And I would have a protein bar that had not the most, but like a decent level of protein, plus green tea for energy, right?
Boost.
And so
Yeah.
it's for people who are shopping for protein bars already. They're going to that set and they're deciding, do I want the one that has 24 grams of protein but won't taste very good? Do I want one that has these unique flavors? Or do I want one that's going to give me an energy boost through caffeine? Great. Like that's an easy decision point, and I can pick the one for me.
When you say that, do you ever ask yourself, like, oh, am I going to do it again? Do you ever think about the old babies that you had to say
I do.
goodbye to and are like, should I do it again?
No, I won't be having a CPG product in store because it's still challenging. Even the best products have an incredible difficult road of growing, and I honestly feel like the industry, the way it's been set up, is stacked against CPG brands. I feel like all the weight and pressure of the industry is on CPG brands, right? Because I thought that if you make the product, you sell it to the grocery store, it'll be their job to sell the product for you. But what you actually find out is that the brand takes on pretty much all the liability. If you buy ingredients from a supplier and your product doesn't sell, you can't return the ingredients. But if you sell that product to a grocery store, the grocery store is actually not responsible for selling it. You are. And if the product doesn't sell, they can actually just charge you back for that. And you have to pay them back the money for something that they didn't sell. And then all the way through the process of getting your product made to the consumer, the brand has taken on all the liability and the responsibility and all that pressure on them.
You're essentially like buying a space in the grocery store when they say, come on in, right?
Yes. And it's interesting. I actually just saw a post from a great company who's starting out. They mentioned some changes, and the retailer sent them feedback like, hey, your marketing is driving people into our store to buy your product plus others. So as long as you keep doing that, we're happy. And retailers like your product's there so that you can send people to our store. You're our marketing to
Right.
get people into our store to buy products.
And they're like, great, I'm glad you get the free market.
Yes, exactly.
I'm glad the return of that person and coming into the store has increased thanks to me, which then makes you just think, it's a great marketing opportunity, but is D2C or having your own store just the better route so that you can keep some more margin for yourself?
And the biggest difficulty, I think this is hard, is that with most food products in our industry, food and beverages, you have to sell large volumes in order to even break even. And that's what leads entrepreneurs to go down this path of working with retailers, because even DSC and Amazon, we were starting out, the volumes are still relatively low,
Yeah.
and so low that most companies cannot build a cash positive business just selling in those channels within the first couple of years. And so
Right.
it leads them to make decisions to sell to someone who's going to order two, three, four pallets of your product because those initial purchase orders look really good.
Right. And they can help with either outside investment or, again, just giving you enough of that push so that you can start to get to the other side.
Exactly.
So you clearly know so much about this space, from the retailing side of things, from manufacturing, figuring out how to scale here. When did you decide you did have to say this? It's always emotional. When did you decide you had to say goodbye to T Squares? And why then at the start of again, you decide to do two things at the same time again. You started Foodbevy officially and Joyful Co. So, talk about that transition and also just how you were feeling during that time.
Yeah, so at the end of 2019, we were about 5 years into the journey, and honestly, I kind of felt that the direction of the business was no longer aligned with the direction of my life. I was still only paying myself, I don't know, like $30,000 a year. I had just had my first kid. I was recently married, and there were a lot of life changes going on. And I just felt like the way the business was going, like we were slowly growing, but we were not this kind of breakout brand. And I think initially our vision, being a young 20 something, was to build this company within 5 years, sell it for millions of dollars. And I realized I was like,
Unicorn, yeah.
it was the wrong even approach to building a business. And the business model and the setup that we made to get to that point essentially was not aligned with where the business needed to go from there if it were to survive and then where I wanted to go. And it actually came to a head because I found myself one night, came home after a lot of stress from the business and essentially couldn't breathe. I fell to the kitchen floor, and luckily my wife is home. She's like, I think you're having a panic attack. And so she helped me through it. And I realized that the emotional, mental, physical stress from the business was actually hurting me. It was detrimental to my own health. And it was really at that moment that I realized I need to make a change. It's hard because my identity was wrapped up in TeaSquares. I was the TeaSquares CEO. All my friends at that point were in the CPG world. We had investors, I had other business partners, we had employees. Like so much of my life was wrapped around being the Square CEO. And it was tough. And then COVID happened a couple of months later. And at that time though, right, I realized something needed to change. I wasn't making money. I started Foodbevy with the idea of building a community and support network for other CPG brands. At the time, COVID happened and we had to shut down our manufacturing facility. At that point, we had just broken even like cash flow positive month to month, which was amazing. But that was driven by selling to corporate offices who became our number one client. And then at that time, of course, all the offices shut down. So our entire revenue just completely went away. And so it was at that moment that I realized, okay, we need to shut down the business. It was slow. We took our time. We paused things. We paused operations. But after a few months, I went to my partners and investors and essentially said, we need to step away from TeaSquares. We dissolved the company and moved on from there.
I mean, thank you for being so open and honest about that too. Not only was it the necessity of COVID and that feeling, I mean, a lot of folks also felt that too. Of, can I continue this? Is this even smart idea? But I will agree with you that my mental health has never been worse in my life than when I was running a tech startup. And I hope yours is a lot better now because there are versions of entrepreneurism, there's versions of being a founder that don't make you feel like panic attacks. Like when I was stepping away, mine was also a weekend where I could not get myself off the couch. Like I physically could not move, was that level of depressed, was like, I think my life is over kind of feeling. And so thank you for sharing that. And it's a feeling I've had too, and I think a lot of other people have, but no one really people say, "Oh, there's highs and lows," but you're like, "How low is the low?" Because it feels really
Yeah,
fucking bad.
it does. It does. And I
And
think,
like you said, it's like, "Oh, this is what people know me as. Who am I now?"
yes.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for sharing your story as well. And I
Oh,
think,
thanks.
you
I
know,
know this is also therapy going on there, but yeah, it's without getting into too much. It is that horrible feeling of you're letting people down, but just also this version of life that you thought you were going to have.
I remember listening to a podcast around that time by another founder who had built and closed companies. And it was interesting because he was like, I know it feels like your whole world revolves around this, but it doesn't. Your friends, they'll still be friends with you. People in the industry, your network around you changes throughout your entire life anyway. If it does, like, it's totally fine, and most people actually won't care. Even retailers is like, "I'm gonna let all our customers down," and their retailers, right? Like, in the first week, we got a couple like, "Oh, sorry to hear that," emails, and then after that, no one cared. They
And
have
they were
moved
like,
on.
okay, okay, we got to keep moving too.
We didn't
Capitalism, honey.
we didn't have a life-changing product that would make people survive or not, right? Like, we weren't that important in their lives in the grand scheme of things. They're like, "Oh, okay, I can't buy this anymore. Alright, what's next?" Right? They could move on so fast, and, eh, it's relieving actually that people aren't relying on you in that same way, right? Our employees had to get new jobs, unfortunately, and they did. So, it's tough.
It does. So I like how Foodbevy, it started as this community because, like you and I have said, like, hey, I want to connect with other people who've been through this, or maybe my hardships or the things I did wrong, I can be really helpful. Or like, hey, I happen to actually do something super well. Let me also share that because we should be good at tooting our own horn sometimes too. When did you say, I want to start something like Foodbevy? Tell us about the name origin too. It's so fun, of course. And then you were doing Joyful Co at the same time. So what are the aha moments here as you were like, hey, I'm winding things down. And I've also started multiple new chapters of my life at the same time. Let's also get some more CPG babies up in there.
I know. So much is going on. I'll take you back to during running TeaSquares. There are so many things I didn't know, how to work with KeyHe and distributors, how to sell into retail accounts. And so actually while running TeaSquares, started organizing founder meetups through our investors where every month we have a founder share around a topic area within the business. And that was actually really great until we all got busy and holidays and then we just stopped getting together. But I was like, this is really impactful because I've constantly felt like I was reinventing the wheel as a founder when thousands of other people have done it before me in every step of the business. And so it was at that point, kind of during the beginning of the pandemic, I was like, hey, I would love to get other founders together and then also do it in a way where it's a membership community because I realized if there's no monetary support for the group, then your attention just gets diverted into what's actually going to bring in money to help support you. And so I built a affordable community where founders could join. There's a small membership fee, and then we would meet regularly, share resources. Some of our first things were a retail buyer directory where we share email address for retail buyers. We had a
Same.
like all these articles and information things basically around what it takes to build and start a CPG brand to help answer all those questions. I was doing webinars and all these virtual events, panels, founder panels, and it was just like a really great community. And so saw a lot of great traction for that. And that's how Foodbevy started. It was also at that same time when we put together our first Joyful Co box. They had a different name back then at the start, but we put together a box that helped fundraise for first responders during COVID. And so I
Wonderful.
coordinated with other founders to put and collect products for our box. We would sell those, and then we donated all the proceeds to a hospital in the Chicagoland area, which is really great. And then from that, started building out a lot of corporate gifting, a lot of companies who wanted to send something to their team members who are remote and at home during that time. And so that's how that business kind of take off. And we were working with local businesses. I also knew a lot of founders who needed more business as well. And so we would buy products from other founders and then sell them through our Joyful Co boxes to a lot of companies.
Such a great way too of these community members are like, wow, look at this perk I get. I get to be sold in boxes and get to be discovered by all of these new customers the same way that the retailer was like, hey, thanks for the free marketing.
Yeah.
They're finally getting it. And you did that for them. How were you finding the first few brands that were joining the community and then being put in the box here too? What was that chicken and egg moment of how do I grow this to be a lot bigger so that the supply is always there?
Yeah, honestly, that's been pretty easy. I
Just like
think
friends and
yeah, so even just
word
being
of
in
mouth.
Chicago as part of the Good Food Accelerator, which is in Chicago.
Yes.
Well, it changed a little bit now. I was part of the Chobani Incubator, pitched at Expo East a number of years. And so I participated in a lot of industry events and through those met hundreds of founders.
They're
just
like,
in
come on
person,
in.
meeting, connecting on LinkedIn. And so that was kind of the basis. But then, especially during that COVID time, like everyone was on LinkedIn as our social network. And so then every day I'm seeing more founders, connecting with them, I'm hosting webinars. Other people would invite people to join the webinars. And so that's how the network has grown. And now Foodbevy reaches over 5,000 CPG founders and people within CPG brands. And so it's been really incredible.
Amazing. So is there a Slack channel for this? How are people communicating so easily with each other?
Yeah, it's interesting because I think during COVID, there's a lot of founders wanting to connect directly and build that community. It has evolved over the last couple of years where now I'm sending out resources, opportunities to founders directly because they're on the go. They don't have as much time to sit in front of on webinars all day long. And so we launched our podcast 3 years ago, and they'll have over 250 episodes, which is really exciting so that people can listen to all the content on the go. And so I've kind of changed things to meet people where they are, service specific opportunities, resources, articles for founders based on their needs, and giving that information to them directly.
And so are you getting feedback from your community of what they want to hear next? Are you following trends? I'm curious, like you have such a wealth of information on this platform. Even if you just go on your homepage, you're like, whoa, there's a lot
Yes.
that you've been building in the last few years alone. But again, it just feels so established. So I'm curious, like, where do you like to tune in and where are you then taking feedback to say, okay, let me get you that information and something digestible?
Yes. So because I'm emailing with founders every single day and they're asking me, hey, Jordan, I'm looking for XYZ, right? It might be like, hey, I'm looking to grow our Amazon business. Any recommendations? Or I'm looking to get into Sprouts and grow my business there. Or, yeah, I would say I was seeing some also larger trends. So during the pandemic, there was a big push towards e-commerce, right? And everyone was selling online, building up their Shopify store, selling on Amazon. 3 years ago, there was like this weird pivot where everyone was talking about omni-channel business and they were
Yes.
building back into retail. And now you exclusively hear brands talking about retail, right? Few brands actually will post and talk about their e-commerce growth. Some still will, but many brands are back to focus on retail as that primary growth channel, especially with the success stories of brands like Poppy and Siete and Bonchons and building large businesses at retail, exiting to strategic investors. And so that's rebuilt as its path to grow. So we see like what resources founders are looking for adjust to that, right? And as they're growing a retailer, they're dealing with issues like deductions and chargebacks. They're looking for services around that, how to work better with distributors and all the fees and charges that come with that. So that's been really interesting. The one thing that's been on everyone's mind, both in and without food, is how AI is impacting business right now, especially
Yes.
for small businesses. And so that's been the number one thing. I've hosted my first AI for CPG brands workshop last month, and it was our most registered and attended webinar. We're also going to host one now as a series every single month, but that's kind of the thing that's on top of mind for most founders.
What are the biggest concerns when it comes to AI specifically with CPG? And what have you found that works well for you and your team, as well as any tips that you can give those folks? Because I am like that person in the middle who's like, this is here. This is like you're kind of Darwinism at this point. You either figure out how to use something properly or you get left behind, but I don't want it to take over our earth and kill us all.
Yes. It's interesting because I think a couple different perspectives. I heard someone say that AI is actually going to be more beneficial for small businesses than larger businesses
Mhm.
because of incentives. If you're an employee at a 10,000 person company, whether you're more productive in your job or not, you're still working 8 hours in that day, right? You want to keep your job and do well, but doing all these extra things, you're not compensated 10 times more if you're 10 times more productive. And so there's less incentive there. But on the entrepreneur side, if you're a team of 1, 5, 20 people, and you're that founder, you can actually exercise the productivity of a 30 or 50 person company at that smaller scale. And you're also going to have outsized impacts because that percentage growth matters a lot more than you do. And so a lot of founders are really into understanding how AI can grow their business. I think the biggest concern is how do I make sure that I'm still bring that personality, the authenticity of my story and the founder story, like, to the journey. If all the content you're creating is AI generated, then is even like your product that's in the
Right.
picture, that's in the story, gonna start to feel fake. And so I think that's where a lot of attention is right now. But I can tell you during our session last month, we had 3 founders present. First founder, Tyler from Points, he built a dashboard so that he could better understand his business. He's a one-person founder. He's using 10 different software, right? You have Shopify, Klaviyo, your own email, all the different software to run your business. And to just even go in and check the dashboards for each one can take hours of your time. And so he built a daily briefing where AI surfaces all the top information, his sales, his Klaviyo performance, all of his marketing efforts, so that he has a CO report show up in Claude every day. And you can instantly know where. He has things that tells you like you should focus on this, here's problems here, and you can use that to start this day. We have another founder who going to actually hire a sales and operations analyst. And it was Nikki from Freestyle Snacks. And she's like, I need to understand like how our sales are actually performing, and I need someone to dig through all this info and surface insights, right? And so she was actually started down the process of hiring someone and was like, wait, let me see if I can get these same answers using AI. So again, using Claude, she built a sales and operations analyst for her business that feeds in all of her sales reports and gives her information like, which stores have out of stocks, which stores are performing better than others, where I need to focus my efforts there. And that's a direct example of being able to fill a need without having to make an expensive hire. And she's like, I have people on my team, and now her entire team, she's created a business Claude account, so they're all using it to supercharge what they were able to do in terms of the output. And then the third person who presented, Simon with Huxley, he has a tech background, so it's like the most advanced in what he built, but he actually built a what he calls Huxley HQ. It's a full software package that runs his entire business now, from tracking inventory, tracking sales, getting deductions and chargeback reports. Anything that he can do runs into this software so that he has all his data in one place. It's allowed him to cancel subscriptions and payments from all this other software that wasn't serving his business and custom build it so it's exactly how his mind thinks. And so that's the range of how people are using it. I think what's next, and which kind of been on the edge of what people talk about as AI agents, but it's really then having AI tools go out and perform meaningful work for you and make that and publish it into the world.
Yeah. And I feel like for me, the difference still lies in it is so good at aggregation for the examples you just used of hey, I have the information, I've been doing the work, I just need it in one place and to like really be able to help get some analyzation going here of what's going on versus the creative aspects, the human storytelling, the writing, I have a beautiful photographer friend coming on next week who's like, yeah, I still can't do beautiful photography at the level that people want. And so I'm sure you hear this from folks all the time too, is I'm working with this low budget. Not grown enough to be able to do a ton in-house myself in terms of say content creation and marketing campaigns. But then they meet the wonderful writer and videographers and photographers, and they're like, "But I can't afford you because I don't think your work is worth enough because I think AI can do what you do." So there's
Or I just don't
still
have the money, right? Like I would love to,
exactly.
I just don't
Or
have the
like,
money.
I'd love to support an artist, but I can't. Yeah. And so I think that's where we're still gonna keep the argument going is like, I was told a couple of years ago, "Your job's gonna be taken soon." And I was like, "Okay, yeah, but there's plenty of times, like, I use Claude or I use things, and I'll see ideas, and I'm like, 'No, I don't really like that one.' Or like, 'That doesn't really fit,' or 'I'm gonna edit this, I'm gonna change it up so it does actually fit what's going on. That was a good start, but this is not fully it." So it's kind of the difference between working with an intern out of college versus someone who's been doing their job 5 to 10 years plus,
Yeah.
So
What's
yeah,
really what I see
yeah,
as well, like there's a company who's they're a partner with Foodbevy, and they were photographers actually, and they're called JK Creative, and
so
Dana
cool.
is the co-founder of that, but they actually did very high-end photography and like retouching
Gorgeous. Oh,
beautiful images. But now they branched off from that larger company. They run their own, and they are now using AI to create photo shoots, but using their expert knowledge to know what a good photo shoot looks like, how to get the lighting settings, how to talk through what type of camera lens and aperture and things to get the exact shots that they want. And so they're able to direct AI as act as a director for the AI to get those beautiful shots without having studio time and models.
wow. That's an interesting. Ooh, I want to learn more about that too. That's another level here. So interesting conversations happening. How are you guys churning out as much content as you do? Because you still have such a small team, but you are able to give webinars and workshops, articles, the podcast, everything is still moving so smoothly.
Yeah, so I believe in this kind of new model. And actually, we were doing the same thing before AI tools like really taken off. So I have two team members that support the work that I do. And I really believe in this new model of founder level strategic people at the top of the company or at the center of the company who are setting the direction, the why, the vision, identifying problems and creating opportunities, and then having a layer of team members who are executing, whether those are team members here in the US or around the globe who are saying, how can I then create this content? And whereas someone might be able to create, just an example, 5 pieces of content, whether that's articles or images, photography, landing pages, using AI to help support their work because they already know how it should look, they're then able to create 10 times the amount of content and output. And it's just like writing faster. It's still having that point of view. It's important to have a clear point of view and having your reason why, but you can get through graphs of information faster if you don't have to write it the entire time, be at your desk. It's more of an editorial and review process than actually writing every piece. And so I think that's the difference as well between what they call like AI slop and just really good content created and supported by AI to be able to get those things out there. And also the automation pieces of being able to publish and create schedules so that everything continues to move. But every week I'm creating webinars, we're writing articles with partners and getting the content out. And it's just been really exciting. But we make sure we're creating and touching and putting our point of view on every single thing that we're creating.
Definitely necessary. Yes. What do you think is still missing in terms of resources for founders in the food and bev space, specifically CPG? So, from the fundraising perspective or anything else that you can think of.
I'd say there's less missing and there's more a set reality that exists that brands are trying to navigate.
Okay. That's an interesting teaser.
So, for example, right, like there are plenty of avenues to create a product, get it into market and grow. But there's actually, unfortunately, I think more businesses in the CPG industry than the industry and consumers can support just by the sheer number of them and what they're actually solving. And I think because of that, a lot of the middle people within the industry, distributors, retailers that get kind of in between getting your products to consumers, have a lot more power than brands do. Because of that, distributors are able to charge wildly outrageous fees to brands and set terms that are bad for them. Investors see hundreds of deals a year and maybe are only looking to support 1 to 5. Right, and so just by definition, they're going to turn away 95+% of the people that they talk to, and it's usually more. Retailers as well, I saw a post about the founder of Suja, and they once paid $1 million in slotting fees to a retailer for a big launch, and the retailer cut them 6 months later. They didn't get their money back. And so these other players within the industry have a lot more buying power than brands, and they are able to dictate the rules. And so a lot of the issues that I hear about in the sea are because most brands don't have any leverage in negotiations with their business partners and getting their problems to the consumer. And that's where the problem lies. And so they're really set up from the beginning for most of them to fail and a few to succeed.
What do you think can be done to provide a better sense of parity and equity then in those relationships? Is that just a we're going to have to turn the industry upside down in some ways?
Yes, and there are people that are working towards that. There's people who are working towards new distributor models that provides more of an equitable relationship with brands. And there's I forget exactly who said this, but there's a quote of, show me the incentive and I'll show you the outcome. And for distributors, they're actually getting pressure from their retailers or they're getting a lower margin. And so instead of making money from retailers, they're actually making a lot of their profit from brands who they're supposed to be buying products from, but they're actually making profit off of fees and reports and all these other things as a new business model because they're not getting it from the Whole Foods of the world because their margin structure has gotten decreased. And so they don't have the incentive, right? There's way more brands. There's two national natural distributors, maybe three if you count some of the independents. They have their choice of thousands of brands to work with. And so it doesn't matter if 1 to 100 don't work with them. It doesn't affect their business at all. And so until there's a more equitable route to getting your product to consumers, that's going to be hard. E-commerce is great for that, except a lot of consumers still prefer the shop for food items in grocery stores.
Yes. Oh, wow. I hope that us talking about this and the work that you're doing as well and your community talking about it, it just not only just the distribution channels, but of course our food supply chains as well need a drastic undertaking as well. And even coming down to our farmers, what incentives are in place there that don't work anymore in 2026 that we've had in place since like the 1950s and things along those
Definitely.
lines. So let's hope a good reckoning continues to come along here.
Yes, there are people making changes, and I want to support them in continuing to do that.
Agreed. Agreed. I want to hear like you've always got so much on your plate, literally, and you like to do a lot of things. You have a beautiful family. What else are you doing so that you can actually turn off and have some fun and take yourself away so that you can continue to be in this better mental health space that it seems like you've found when it comes to food bevy?
As I mentioned with TeaSquares, my goal was this aspirational journey to like sell the business in 5 years and make millions of dollars. My stress level on average was an 8 out of 10. And at the lowest on any day, it was like a 6 out of 10. So I was constantly stressed.
Not
And
a good
so
result.
when I started Foodbevy, I consciously made the decision to do two things. One is that my average stress level needed to be like a 2 or 3 out of 10 at any given time. And second, actually I built this to be my life's work from the standpoint of I don't have any plans to sell. I am continuing to help brands. Like if I do this until the day I can't anymore, I will be completely happy. Right. And so there's no, everyone's like, where do you want to be in 5 years? Where do you want to grow? Yes, I'm always looking to like constantly improve, but comparing to myself and not comparing to others. And so that allows me to just have lower levels of stress all the time, build the business on my own terms, and also spend time outside, spending time with my family and kids and making time for that. And knowing that I can actually take a slower approach to growth and to the business than I previously did. Where now I'll have an idea and say, hey, that's a really great idea. I can afford to do that in 2 years. Versus with T Squares, I would be out of business in 3 months if I didn't take these kind of wild shots. And so building a business that works for me was extremely important and something that I encourage every founder to do. And also knowing not every business can be low stress, right? Like if you're choosing to make a food product, which has to be manufactured and have low margins, right? Like that's going to be a more difficult business to do than some others. There's supplement companies that have a very high margin product and they're able to be first where they're profitable on Amazon, like by design. That's an easier business fundamentally than something that has high ingredient costs. And so it's so important to choose the type of business that you want to run and design the business model to support the life you want to live.
Yes. And I think it's choosing your hard, right? Like, not all of it has to be incredibly hard, but understanding, like, yeah, if I want it to be this way, like, there are certain things that are going to come with that.
Right.
And I love that you've defined success very differently from 20s to 30s for sure, too. And it's nice to see that even in culture in general, we're all trying to be a little less like the hustle porn and all that. It's just, it was so toxic.
Exactly.
So toxic. Oh my gosh. Jordan, you have a lot to be proud of, but what do you think you're most proud of? And give us a hint on what you do think is coming next in the journey here.
I think the thing that I'm most proud of is being an inspiration to my kids, being able to be present. I'm able to work from home, spend time with my kids. I remember my daughter when she was 3, I came out of a meeting and I'm like, "Hey, what are you doing?" She's like, "Hold on." And she's on the phone and she's like, "UPS? Tuesday? Wednesday? No, you need to deliver right now." And like was having like work meetings for her little pretend business. And she would also set up, she didn't have even a tablet, but she like set up a piece of paper and pretend that she's like talking with someone, like running her own little business. And not that she needs to develop that, start working early, but it's manifested in really fun ways. Like she had a art market where she actually made her own products and sold products at this art market and loved it, was so fulfilled, and introducing that feeling of entrepreneurship and being able to create something and have people find value in it has just been so incredible and so proud of her.
It's really like it's in your blood. It's in your family's blood. That's for
Yeah.
sure. That's so beautiful. Okay. Last question before the world's best and hardest question. And then I'll let you go here. What is one piece of advice you'd like to give anyone who's starting something new of their own, whether it's within food and bev and CPG or anything?
A lot of times we think about the mission and vision for your business or the thing that you're creating. But we often don't stop and think about your own personal mission and vision for your own life and how you want that to be. And I found it incredibly powerful to create a life mission statement to help guide you through decisions. And it allows you to build an identity around yourself and not external things. And so, for example, with the whole T Square situation, like my identity was so built in T Squares that I didn't know who I was without it, but now I do. And I realized that my central guiding mission is I love building products, building services that help improve other people's lives while at the same time helping others do the same. And so that's my core mission. Everything I do revolves around that, whether it was through past businesses, currently what I'm doing with Foodbevy and Joyful Co. or anything else that I do in the future. Everything will align with that personal mission.
That's hammer drop right there. That was beautiful. That's something really important for all of us to think about. Thank you.
Of course.
Jordan, here we are. It's I'm always bittersweet. But here we are. A little reminder for folks. This is called the perfect bite, not only because it's a perfect bite of our friends who bring value across the food and bev chain here, but also because we each have our own perfect bites. So a recipe, a meal, something you've eaten that every time you think about it, it makes you smile. So Jordan, what is your perfect bite?
My perfect bite is a homemade chocolate chip cookie because it brings back just the nostalgia of my childhood, my start as an entrepreneur selling cookies, and also that memory of family times I get to bake with my family today.
So perfect. It's so you. I was gonna say the cookie. I was like, yeah, your first start.
Something simple but so
Oh,
powerful.
oh, and man, do they hit. It
Yes.
doesn't matter if you've even picked up like the pre-made dough sometimes. Pulling it out of your own oven has it's a different feel.
I love the fresh baked, moist, gooey cookie right out the oven.
I'm now that girl who's like, and let's put some sea salt on it, you know.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. The flake salt and sprinkle on top,
Yes.
like Salt
Yes.
Bay.
Yes, I'm salt baying all the cookies. Jordan, this was so much fun. Thank you so much for coming on here today. Can you let folks know where to find you? So, the website, social accounts, and anywhere else that they can connect with you.
Yeah, definitely. Thanks so much, Sarah. You can connect with me on LinkedIn. That's the best place. Just search Jordan Buckner. And then you can also check out foodbevy.com. Every day we're posting articles, resources, podcasts, webinars to help you grow your business. You can subscribe to our email list and also connect on Instagram.
At Foodbevy. Amazing. Thank you again, Jordan. And everyone, thank you so much for tuning in. This was Jordan Buckner's Perfect Bite.
Thanks for tuning in to The Perfect Bite today. You can listen to future episodes on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and anywhere else you listen to podcasts. Thanks in advance for subscribing, rating, and reviewing. You can follow The Perfect Bite on social media at Perfect Bite Pod. Now go get something good to eat.